blessings. Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother Asar Motep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology, and today is Umoja Unity Sunday, February 19, 2023, and we are going to have a live discussion presenting some information that I have which suggests that Jesus the Christ of the Christians was primarily inspired by the archetype from ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt known as Osiris or Osiris by the Greeks. So we will discuss all of that and much more when we return in just a bit. Welcome, people. Thank you for joining. I am very appreciative of you taking this time on Sunday. You could be out. Well, it's nice weather out here in Philly. So I don't know what's it like in your situation. But I'm very appreciative that you took the time to sit here with me. For those of you, of course, who are catching us on the live, either on Facebook, YouTube, of course, and on Twitter. So shout out to all my Twitter peoples. And I just want to make sure that each of y'all remember to that is right. Hit the like button. If you are new to the channel, I encourage you to subscribe so that you can get the notices when we're having these dynamic conversations. So again, very appreciative to everyone who has joined the chat. A few shout outs, peace and blessings to our good brother Richard Sheffield is in the building. Brother Garfield he'll be in the building. He's doing a live show, so he said that he'll be back shortly, but shout out to you. And Teti Usama'at Ras Neferu, and our good sister Mika, and other long-term supporter, Miss Lamb. Peace and power to you as well. Our good brother Octo Thorpe is with his family. And, family over everybody. But I do appreciate you coming through, stopping by, and for your generous donation to the channel. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And our good brother, Ini Herod Kalfani, is in the building. Everything is everything. And Negist, if I'm saying that correctly. I appreciate you stopping by. Our good brother, Craig Moon Ra is in the building. Can't go wrong when you are revolutionary minded. Peace and blessings. Thank you for joining. Infinite Minds and Donnie C is in the building. And Musoni is in the building. Haven't seen you in a minute. Tony Macaroni is in the building. And Sister El Kevilon Mine, all the way from the West Coast, is in the building. And shout out to our good brother Edward Nigma 9x9, also in the building. So thank each and every one of you for joining this conversation. And we are just going to get started. And for those who may not be familiar, on Friday the 17th, I believe, I had the opportunity to join our good brother Garfield on his Garfield podcast to discuss the foreign origins of Osiris. And so this is going to be a continuation of that conversation. But more so now we're going into the direction of how, although Osiris himself comes from a different origin other than ancient Egypt, which I believe he originates from the Sudan based on the evidence. This archetype, Osiris, has indeed influenced the development and conceptualization of Jesus the Christ. So we'll just get into a few. I had a debate way back in like 2010, 2011 with a good childhood friend of mine. His name is Tawfiq Kotmanel from Rhode Island. And, we were in a rap group together. This one when I was a Hebrew Israelite, and we had a group called the Tribe of Judah. So that tells you how deep I was in my Hebrew Israelitism. But we was called the Tribe of Judah, But he has, since left the tradition, of course. So as I went on to the African side of things. He continued and stayed in the lane of Christianity. So now our thoughts conflict. And we had a debate at a library back in Texas, regarding the relationship between Egypt and the development of Jesus the Christ. So it's been a long time. I've continued to research and have updated a lot of my views, and certain things have gotten stronger, certain things I've abandoned, So I wrote a text for that debate, and it will be updated in a couple of years with the more detailed analysis. So be on the lookout for that. But just giving you some preliminary stuff for today. So let me see. I am going to share my screen. Let me make sure first that is let me change that real quick. And delete that. Boom. All right. So go there. Now I can share the screen. I kind of change some things up here. So I won't be able to really kind of see the chat unless I open this other computer. But I'll do this for now. So, matter of fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me go real quick on this other computer so I can at least see the chat. And also, after this program, if y'all want to discuss it further, I set up another show after this, the after party, and we can get into the details and questions and all of that if you have it. So we'll go from there. And here we go. So Osiris, origin of Jesus. So, and I need to change the date on that because today is the 19th. See, when you adjusting stuff at last minute, you forget some things, right? Here we go. So there's a few things that I want to establish first. So ultimately what I'm arguing is that Osiris is the prototype. Then there's certain characteristics that are adapted by Alexander, the so-called great. And then they combine these two and form Jesus, but his Hebrew name is Yeshua, right? I won't, in this discussion, for the sake of time, deal with the Alexander the Great piece, but it's a very important piece in this continuation, going into the Hebrews, right? And there's another thing that I want us to keep in the back of our mind, and it would be good if y'all have pen and paper and y'all can just kind of jot down, key concepts. And if you have a pen and paper, I want you to write down this concept called the principle of fewest move or least moves, right? This is a term that is used in biology that we have adopted in linguistics, where it talks about the origin of something and whether it's some biological diversity or whether it's talking about linguistic diversity. And it is the idea that where you find the most diversity of the concept over time, this is more than likely, statistically speaking, that it originated. So this is one of the reasons why, for example, they, like Joseph Greenberg and others, have renamed the Hamido-Semitic languages because it implies that the language phylum originated outside of Africa and then came into Africa. But the problem is that all of the languages, with the exception of Semitic for the so-called Afro-Asiatic group, is in Africa and isn't spoken outside of Africa. And with Semitic being the lone language that is supposed to be related to these other African languages, it is by the principle of least moves and greatest diversity, it would have had to originated in Africa, and then a branch went out of Africa, and that's where the Semitic comes from. So it is this same principle here when we're talking about Osiris. When it comes to Osiris, Africa is full of Osirises, right? By terms of name, by terms of application, by terms of deities and icons, and in living traditions. Africa is the place where you find Osiris everywhere. But you don't find him in the Middle East in this great quantity and diversity and understanding. The lone Osiris that jumps out into the Middle East, of course, is Jesus, is what I'm arguing here. So if you can kind of understand that principle, you'll get a gist of what it is that I'm talking about today. So as I mentioned, we had a conversation on Garfield's channel regarding the probable origin of Osir or Osiris. And my argument is that he is a Nubian conceptualization in deity. And, it moved into the ancient Egyptian pharaonic period of the second half of the fifth dynastic period, right? So uh, I just want to recap on some things that is going to be essential. And these are just kind of highlights from that 2-hour discussion, right? So what I argue is that, and you got to understand part of the controversy with Osiris, it is virtually impossible to find a native name for Osiris or etymology for Osiris in the actual ancient Egyptian language. And because of this is one of the first clues that it is not an ancient Egyptian deity, because Usir is not an ancient Egyptian word. And so you're going to have to look outside of Egyptian for the etymology of Osiris. Now, there, of course, like any other academic field, there's many schools of thought. Some believe that, you know, you can find the meaning in Egyptian if you kind of blink your eye and squint it and look sideways. And then there's those who believe that, of course, he must come from the Middle East because, you know, that's where the quote unquote Egyptians came from. They believe that people out of the Middle East came and settled into Egypt and created cultures that they did not have in the Middle East, right? But they just totally forget about Africa in general. But if they do, what they'll do is look towards the Berbers, right, in Libya, and they never look into the Sudan. They never look into Uganda. They never look into Ethiopia, Chad, these regions, Niger, you know, for answers that help us to understand phenomenon that's obscure in ancient Egypt. And so with that backdrop, now, you know, based upon my linguistic and comparative analysis and looking at primary source material and secondary source material coming from the Greeks, for example, it is my argument that Osiris derives from a verb meaning to erect, to support, to lean on. In its nominal or noun form, Wasir means pillar or tree. From here, it has derived associations dealing with the nature of one's character, right? And there's, you know, we can't avoid the linguistics. So, you know, I'm just giving you a heads up here. And I just want to give you a framework so that you can kind of understand that, again, there's going to be a journal article that comes out of this discussion. But I've already written on some of this stuff in a few of my most recent publications. So for those, you know, who haven't supported, you can essentially understand my argument a little better. But the word wasir derives from a form that we reconstruct as khru, right, or khri. And due to the presence or loss of certain prefixes and suffixes, we get these consonantal skeletons in the variety of languages that I've been able to examine. So again, that principle of least moves and greatest diversity applies here in this case. So when we're looking at these African terms, you're going to find the word wasir in these forms. So this is his original form. If you can see my mouse circling over the reconstructed form, right? And then you'll find the form as KR, KL, KN. This is from the ancient Egyptian chr, where we get the word netcher from, chur, chel, chin, and then from ch to t, tr, tl, tn. And sometimes this ch can go to a ts. It's a simultaneous t and s sound together, ts, right? And then from there, or from t, it can go to s. SR, where we get the wasir form, SL, SN, and sometimes the second syllable is dropped. So it's just S, right? And then you have the sh variant, sh R, sh L, sh W, and then sh. So when you see the sh W, for example, this is the form that you will find in among the Yoruba as eshu, right? But we won't have time to go into the details of how eshu is Osiris in this conversation. Maybe we can have that conversation in the after quote unquote party. So just giving you this kind of heads up, right? Also, what I argue is that the probable original form at the time that Osiris enters the Egyptian pantheon is that it was probably spelled like Osiris or Osiri. You see how I'm doubling the I's here, right? Or they represent a diphthong. It's two vowels together, right? And it's because of this pronunciation is why the Egyptians had to spell the name like this with the WS. This is a semi-vowel, Y or I, R, right? So they're either trying to signify the long, E, or the combination of like this Y, I, ye, or yay, a, like was said. And they noticed that this was significantly different than how they have in terms of their cognizance for their original forms, because they already have the principle of wasir in the form of nature in their language, right? So just giving you that backdrop. So put that in your mental Rolodex. So some important sound relationships. So remember these consonant skeletons that I showed earlier. When I was examining this, I looked into, of course, ancient Egyptian language, and of course, Chiluba Bantu, because that's just what we do over here. And I also looked into Doluo, the Collagen language, and the Acholi language. All of these are Nilotic languages. These are related to each other. So you can see, if you kind of pay attention, we'll look at a few examples here so I can kind of walk you through the process. Again, the linguistics is going to be important. So let's look at this word to draw or to write. You see how in the Doluo language, this form choro, to draw or to write. In Calajan, it is ser, to write. But in Acholi, they say cho, to write, or choyo, writing. This in Ocholo, and excuse me, in Ocholi, the liquid sound has been lost, right? So this is why you have this long O here. It's a principle in linguistics we call compensatory lengthening, right? As a result of the loss of a consonant. Now let's look at the word wife, chi, wife. In Collagen, you can either say T or chi or che, woman, feminine prefix marker. So like the feminine T in Egyptian, that is suffixed, and Collagen is prefixed to a word. And so they'll say chi, wife of. But notice the word for men, cho, because that second syllable has been lost, that liquid, but it's present in the word twar, for husband. Now let's look at this word down here, chill, clear, clean of water and body when in good health. Chill, clean, spotless, pure, thorough. Chur, to rinse, rinse out. Talil, clean, righteous, without blemish. In Acholi, it's chill. So notice how even in the Collagen language, the ch and t sounds in the beginning and the interchange between the liquid L and a rhotic R, right? So when you see these diversity of forms, understand that they are the same word, and even within the same language, there's a phenomenon in linguistics that we call semantic shading. And the semantic shading is best exemplified in the collagen language, for example. Yoruba has this as well. They'll change the initial the initial consonants to bring a slightly different meaning or application to the theme of the root. So let's look at, for example, this word. Let's do the first two, right? For argument's sake. So see, this is one language. Matter of fact, because it may be hard for y'all to see because I have so many examples here. So I just made this variant. So this is just the top portion of this graph that you see here, right? So in the collagen language, the palatalization, you can see I've created 3 columns, and in the first column is going to be those words that have the consonant skeleton KR or KL. In the second column are going to be those words that either have CH-R or TL, or CH-L and TR, right? And then in the third column, you're going to have SL or SR, right? Notice this is the same language. And this, so let's start at the first row. So cur, to call, to beckon. But for semantic shading, they change the consonants. Till, call for music band, request for a song or music. And then in the third column, sil, to sing praise songs, sing for the oxen while they are yoked on the farm. And a matter of fact, this word here, this form here becomes isilo, a word for panther, but also praise name for the king, right? That's a different conversation. So let's go to the second column. Quell, get fibers from bark. Then chur, peel off. Churut, peel off, remove out. Then sor, extract fiber, get sisal strings from bark. Sword, pull hard, pull vigorously. So can y'all see that these essentially are the same word, but now they're pronounced differently? So that's how, when we go back, we get this diversity. So remember the principle of least moves and greatest diversity, right? This is I'm giving y'all some academic game here, right? So when you're hearing me say that this is cognate with asar, this is a variation of the word asar, understand the methodology and why I can say that, right? So as I stated earlier, the word osir comes from a root sir, which we can find them among the Doluo. The Luo people are people who originated out of Sudan, but have migrated, and they have people still in Sudan. There's Doluo of Uganda and Doluo, Doluo is the language. The Luo in Uganda and in Sudan and in Kenya, right? So there's that long stretch down the Nile is where you'll find them. And the same thing with the collagen, and the same thing with the Ocholi, because the Ocholi are just a branch of the Doluo. So you can think of Ocholi language in the same way that you would think of the Hebrew language, which is really a dialect and a branch of the Canaanite language, right? So hold on one second as I take a squiggle for my Calypso Taste of the Islands Ocean Blue Lemonade. Appreciate that short break. Now, here is the Wikipedia just summary of Osiris. For those of you who just don't know who Osiris is, right? He is the god of fertility, of agriculture, the afterlife, the dead, resurrection, life, and vegetation in ancient Egyptian religion. He was classically depicted as a green-skinned deity with a pharaoh's beard, partially mummy-wrapped at the legs, wearing a distinctive tuft crown. And I found this crown among the collagen people. They still wear this, which is interesting. And holding a symbolic crook and flail. He was one of the first to be associated with the mummy wrap. When his brother Set cut him up into pieces, after killing him, Osiris's wife Isis found all the pieces and wrapped his body up, enabling him to return to life. Osiris was widely worshipped until the decline of ancient Egyptian religion during the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire. So, this is a summary. Osiris is a conversation unto itself, is a study unto itself. So there's so much to unpack. Of course, we don't have that kind of time. So we're only going to deal with some snippets. So if you want to find out more real quickly, type in Osiris in Wikipedia, it'll give you some good source material. Right now, this is an Osiris right here that we're seeing. This is a chief. This is a king. And again, they play off of the consonant, and this is of the Acholi, branch of the Doluo people, right? And of course, in Africa, they constantly have these elaborate head wraps with feathers all on them, same kind that you see with Osiris. And what this is actually just a bunch of fur. If we have time, we can go into that later, right? Now, the word Asir in the Ocholi language is this word query, which means a reliable, sharp, talented, and upright person. And from that same root, we get Ker, care, royalty, chiefdom, kingdom. So you see, like this, I can't pronounce it. So unless there's somebody in the audience that speaks Acholi, this is a special kind of E with the dot under it. This is just how we represent it. It's a different type of sound than what you will find in English, which is how we know when this form in the SR form was brought into Egypt, they didn't have this sound. They didn't have this combination of sounds. And that's why when they spelled Wasir, they spelled it WSYR, or a long IR, because they're trying to get us approximately to this pronunciation, right? And so this is how the word Wasir is related to chieftainship and kingship, because they're built off of the same root. So when you say a king in Doluo or Choli or collagen, you're saying that this is a reliable and upright person, right? And these are related forms. So we have this root, kerau, raising, and normally it would have this long E, but instead it triggered compensatory lengthening on the consonant, so they doubled the consonant here, right? Now, and then kal, jump over, skip, Ker, to splash, to sprout, land on, of flying things. But the root that we're looking at here is the sprout, because for raising, the concept of raising, of erecting, of growing, and educating, and the like come from the same root. So these are all different forms of the same word. And here are some representations of the word wasir in a number of African languages. So we have wasir, and so y'all know my definition of Osir, which is in line with the Acholi that we just saw. And in Doluo, Osir, he who is stable, firm, reliable, who will not fail, who is strong. Middle Egyptian is their native word for Osir, is Netcher, divinity, prominent or powerful man, which is in Chiluba, Bantu language, Nkole, prominent or powerful man or God. And if you want to say spirits or the ancestors, you say Ba-Nkole, Ba-Nkola, right? And a variant from that same root, because they both derive from this notion of growing and raising, is Nkela, erudite, learned man, educated, civilized, and noble, right? In a Yoruba, they say Asalu, a title of honor among the Ogboni fraternity of elders. And then remember, I told you earlier, it's Zulu, Isilo, leopard, praise name of a king, his majesty. And note that in Middle Egyptian, to say leopard, you say Incherit, right? Osiris was known by many associations and epithets. And when the native Egyptians got a hold of Wasir, they kept his name the same. However, they gave him titles based on the meaning of his name, but using words in their own language, like the word Djed, which means pillar, stable, to endure, etc. And there's also another word, Iwin, which means a pillar. And you can see the hieroglyph for it right here, Iwin, right? And for those who follow this channel and who, of course, have my books, I've been able to demonstrate that Iwin is still a variant of the word Osir, just from a different language. Now, keep in mind that, of course, the indigenous folks, they didn't have writing, they didn't have historical comparative linguists, so they wouldn't have known that even though they're calling Osiris Iwin in Egyptian, that they're still calling him by the same exact name, but from a different ancestral language and dialect, right? And so in the Yoruba language, although they have Asalu, which is cognate with Wasir, they also have the Iwin form. So Iwin, meaning ancestors, ghosts, spirits, is Awon, spirit. Ingas, another Nigerian group, Won, ancestors, the living dead, shades. The Bachaba, Won, the demigod in charge of the dead, the demigod in charge of the kingdom of death, right? And this is Osiris in Nigeria among the Bachama. They're related to the Hausa people, right? And Osiris lives among the Ga. And it says anything that can work but not be seen includes the smaller beings of specialized and limited activities associated with medicines and magic. We'll get into that in a second, right? And so here's the word Owin and God Osiris, and when to be, to exist. So you can see the linguistic correlates between the two. So Awon, pillar, column in Yoruba, and Awon, spirit. And I have it highlighted in blue, so you can see how they use the phenomena of paronymy to create this or to highlight the characteristic which we find in this form here. So here's when the hieroglyphics for it for when it's referring to Osiris, right? So going to the next section, Osiris, death and resurrection, a linguistic perspective. So I mentioned the word paronymy earlier, and many of you may not, who don't follow me, may not be familiar with what that means, right? And I just want to give you an example of what paronymy is. And hold on one second. I'm trying to log in on this other computer. But anyway, so paronymy is this belief that two or more words in a given language in a synchronic perspective, that means in a particular time period, a moment, not historically, diachronically, but synchronically, two words that sound similar, there must be a relationship between these two words. In ancient times, when two words sounded alike or exactly the same were perfect homonyms, again, the people thought that these words necessarily derived from the same root, and they created cultural motifs, ideas, and myths based on this connection of words sounding the same. And so this is an example that I'm giving you right now, how certain rituals and culture, this is, and here's a secret here. This is how sacrifice becomes an African phenomenon, because in the proto language, the the word for to cut and to kill and the word for to purify sounded alike, sounded the same. And but that's a discussion for another time. But anyway, so in this article, in this edited work titled Traditional Religion in West Africa, edited by E.A. Adegbola, he gives an example here. This is Robert G. Armstrong. He says the Adu mudfish or catfish is used in ancestral sacrifices as well. The sentence is probably an unconscious quotation from a standard prayer formula in which, for grammatical reasons, the demonstrative particle a follows adu. Neho kadu a. This produces a neat bilingual pun on the well-known Hausa word adua, prayer. Thus, the sentence contains the double entendre, the fish that is called prayer. So you can see how they link the concept of the fish and the concept of prayer together, because this word adu sounds similar to addu, addua. They're not related words at all, but because they sound the same, is now part of a prayer ritual where the concept of the fish is connected to the concept of prayer. So this is how paronymy works. And that's how we get, a lot of the ideas and cross-pollinations and stuff is simply based on the similarity of words, right? So this is how, for example, how Osiris, whose primary meaning derives from a root meaning to grow and to rise and to erect, and then in nominal form meaning a pillar or a tree, how does Asar get associated with the principle of death in the afterlife? Because there's other words in the language. So, for example, I'm starting off here with the Luba language. So, for a lot of forms that are cognate with SR forms in those nilotic languages, which I showed earlier, you find either sh-l or s-l in Chiluba, which is a Bantu language. So the concept of death ultimately means like leaving, to sever links, to break free, like the spirit of the body released from the body. Or chila, to terminate or to finish, something to end, something to die. Sula, being at the end, finish, terminating. Sula, being tired, being out, being to be completed. Su'ulula, detach, untie, close out. Right? So that's a related form and concept in the Baluba language. Excuse me, in the Chiluba language of the Baluba people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, when you go to like the languages of, for example, the Collagen, the Nilotic language, its cognate is just clear as day in terms of to die. So we have sir, to die, going yonder, overcoming, passing, jumping over to the other side in terms of death, but also coming back, awaking from sleep. Because remember, they always say, I'm not sure where this originated, but that sleep is the cousin of death, right? And so to the indigenous African mind, when you go to sleep, you dream, for example, you jump to the other side, to the Orun, as we say in Yoruba, but the Duat, when you are in ancient Egypt and wherever else the underworld is for other African groups, right? And this is, but the process of going there, jumping over to the other side and awaking from the sleep is something that you get from this root. So sertin, die, pass. O sertin, you pass, you crossed over to the other side. Ki serto, to die, crossed over. Serun, awake from sleep. All the same root. So to die, to go beyond, to go on the other side, to be a foreigner, and to awake from sleep. Now, in the Doluo language, remember the SR also corresponds between the two. And here they say ch-r instead, right? Just like netcher, cheer. But notice how the vowels are. Chier is different from chiro, right? Chier, chier. To rise from the dead, rise, recover after fainting, to resurrect. Ochir has risen. It has risen. She has risen. He has risen. Right? Cheer to raise from the dead, to revive. And then when you want to say foreigner over there, you say cho, yonder, over there. Right? And I'm just looking. Someone Shun says, like in Black Panther. Yeah. So when Black Panther goes to the ancestral realm, he's pulling an act of Osir to going yonder, overcoming. But you see how the semantics help you to understand, because a lot of this sometimes has to deal with health. So if you were able to be near death and to revive, to recover from that, you have essentially was seared. You have Osiris has risen, to raise from the dead, to revive, even after initiation. And especially among the college, when they go through their circumcision rites, when they exclude the young boys into the forests and seclusions, when they come back into the community, they literally say, you have visited the underworld and now you are back. They have gone through an Osirian ritual. I'll deal with that at a later time, and I'll quote the literature exactly. Right? So if you understand this, then you can understand how Osir, whose root has to deal with growing and tree and becoming strong, at the same time is associated with death and kingship, right? Because of this phenomenon called paronymy, right? In the Ocholi, cho, to wake up, to rise. Remember that second consonant lost. Choyo, waking, rising. Cheer, to rise from death. Osir, Kero raising Kyle to jump over to skip, right? And you can see them with the leopard skins, just like in ancient Egypt, the crowns with the feathers, right? And then, of course, you see Osiris, who, after being murdered by his brother Set, goes through this initiation process where he's then raised as the Djed. He earns his name, right? He becomes a new individual. So, part two. I don't even know if I want to, but this kind of this kind of builds on that concept as well of beyond and going yonder, right? So a cognate for the word nature and the word wasir in the Lugbara language is adro or adroa, which is loosely defined as God. But this author in whose name is Middleton, last name is Middleton, in the text Lugbara, Religion, Ritual, and Authority Among an East African People, he says, I translate adro or nature or wasir as God, although the correspondence of meaning is not exact. Adro, the basic form of the term, refers to a personified force outside the control and beyond the understanding of living men who are his creatures. Indeed, unlike our term God, Adro is used also to refer to a category of objects, which are manifestations of divinity and beyond the control and understanding of men. Many apparently miraculous things are called adros, such as what I have called the guardian spirit of man, or even matches. The word is sometimes used for testicles and for the power of procreation. This is all Osirian here. Adro lives on earth, especially in rivers. He is also found in large trees and thickets and on high mountains and rocky plains. He is even in every stream. Adro is a common to all Lugbara. In addition, each clan has its own spirit called Adro. The clan is a dispersed group which is not concerned in corporate activity. This spirit is also a manifestation of God's power, and in many cases is thought of as having been a distant ancestor. So if you ever really want to get into what a nature means, this is it. You find this cognates in related languages. And I have, around this time, I think it was this month, last year, I participated with Dr. Salim Faraji and Jahi Issa and a number of other scholars in an online conference dealing with the link between West Africa and the Nile Valley. And my contribution was on the etymology of the word nature. And I have wrote a journal article for it, and it has been peer reviewed and accepted and will be published along with a few other scholars from this conference in the Senegalese Journal Review sometime this year, right? I'm not sure exactly when it comes out, but I got the acceptance in, it was either December or January, right, for my article. So, I go through the details to prove that adroa is nature, right? But one of the things I wanted to kind of point out is this relationship between these forces of nature and ingredients in medicine. And you got to understand, this is where these healing components, because a lot of the gods, quote unquote, gods and goddesses that exist in these African traditions are really those potent ingredients that are used in medicines. And even with Aset, really Aset is a medicine, right? And this word Aset is even related to the word Osiris, which is interesting because in the Greeks call her Isis, right? In the Coptic language, it is Esse. but the melodic, in the melodic script, you pronounce Isis Wos, W-O-S, which I found interesting. Anyway, and so here's another variation or another word dealing with the primeval gods, but the same root meaning a medicinal ingredient, right? So you always got to look at, when you're looking at these concepts of gods and goddesses, a lot of times they're associated with plants and medicine, right? So now we can get to what y'all came here for. So I hope, you know, that long intro, that hour intro helped to establish the framework for what we're going to be talking about here today. So Osiris, the origin of Jesus. And I normally start these conversations with a good example from The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz. So, you know, in the late 1800s, a book was written titled The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which was later made into a film. And you can see the film poster cover on the left-hand side. Now, on the right-hand side, you see a later adaptation of The Wizard of Oz with the word titled The Wiz. And it was the famous, it starred, you know, Michael Jackson back in the day, and the all-star cast, right? Now, this is just a